All right, jumping right in. We're doing a deep dive today into new EU cybersecurity rules, ones that could really affect you if you're running a digital business there, a medium or large one.
Yep. Talking about the NIS2 Directive, we've gathered all the official docs, the directive, the regulation to implement it, even FAQs and fact sheets, really break it all down.
This isn't, just legal jargon. This is serious. It's the EU saying cybersecurity is, well, it's non-negotiable, and they're backing it up.
Yeah, exactly. And the digital world's changed a lot since the old rules back in 2016. More threats, higher stakes. And businesses, especially yours, rely on digital systems way more now.
So NIS2, it's like cybersecurity 2.0 for the EU. Big picture, though, what's the goal with this update?
It's focused on three main things: each country being prepared, better cooperation at the EU level, and tougher security, but tailored to specific sectors.
Sector specific, okay? That's where our listener comes in. Who needs to pay extra close attention here?
NIS2 casts a much wider net than before. Think energy, transport, banking, healthcare, those essential sectors. Then there's important ones like digital infrastructure, cloud providers, data centers, that kind of thing.
So big players in the digital world, NIS2 is on their radar for sure.
Absolutely. And it's not just the infrastructure. NIS2 also covers what they call digital providers.
Okay, so what falls under that?
Online marketplaces, search engines, social networks, basically any sizable company with a major role online.
So large online marketplace in the EU, you're listening up right now.
You got it. And the difference between essential and important entities, that matters. The level of, oversight, the potential penalties, it depends which category you're in.
So essential services, they're under more scrutiny. Higher potential fines if they don't comply.
Exactly. The EU they're making it very clear they're serious.
Okay, let's get down to it. What are the core cybersecurity elements that NIS2 outlines? What do businesses actually have to do?
It mandates a risk management approach. 10 key elements for all companies, covering a range of cybersecurity practices.
10 elements, wow. For our listeners, say, running that e-commerce platform, where do they even start?
Well, all 10 matter, but for digital providers, a few really stand out. Handling security incidents, crises effectively, securing their supply chains, being rigorous about things like vulnerabilities, encryption, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's dive into those then. First up, incident handling. Imagine there's a breach on this e-commerce platform. What are the absolute must-do steps under NIS2?
First, they got to spot problems fast. So systems in place to monitor anything suspicious, any activity.
Makes sense. Can't react if you don't know something's happened.
Right. Once they detect an incident, there's this reporting process. 24 hours early warning to the authority.
If they're still figuring things out, got to flag it right away.
Right. Quick action. Then 72 hours more detailed notification. And a full report within a month of finding the issue.
Wow. Fast action A&D, all the info for analysis. Sounds intense.
It is. But the FAQs, they actually explain this well. It's about balancing that quick response with in-depth investigation later.
I can imagine this feeling overwhelming, especially for businesses new to serious security incidents.
For sure. Preparation is key. Documenting your response, staff training, testing your plans regularly. That's how you're ready to respond effectively when it happens.
Makes sense. All right, next. Supply chain security feels crucial for digital businesses, especially those with a network of partners, vendors.
Absolutely crucial. NIS2 is clear. You have to address cybersecurity risks, but in your supply chain, not just your own company.
So how does an e-commerce platform, how do they ensure their suppliers are up to par on security?
Starts with a solid policy, outlining how you assess and manage risks linked to those suppliers, not just hoping for the best.
Okay, so practical steps. Are we talking contracts, due diligence, that sort of thing?
Exactly. Choosing suppliers based on their security practices, specific clauses in contracts, then keeping an eye on them, making sure they're, doing what they promised.
It's like the whole cloud provider situation comes to mind. You're an online business, relying on them. Their vulnerabilities become your vulnerabilities, right?
Exactly. And any vendor, really. If they can access your systems, your data.
So even if your internal security is great, if your suppliers are lax, it could all, fall apart.
That's the point. NIS2, this part of it, it's making businesses look beyond themselves, the whole ecosystem they work in.
Speaking of looking beyond, how about security testing? Where does that fit in?
Regularly testing, it's essential. Making sure your measures actually work as intended.
So penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, are those the main ones?
Yep, exactly those. And the regulation, it stresses it's not about checking a box. The findings, they should feed back into your risk management, ongoing.
So it's a cycle, testing, learning, improving.
Got it. Now, security patch management. Seems straightforward, but I bet it's more complex than it looks.
You're right. Applying patches promptly, it's best practice.
Yeah.
But the regulation, it acknowledges sometimes there's reasons to delay or even skip some patches. Interesting. So it's not just patch everything ASAP.
Right. But you got to document your decisions, why you might not apply one. That documentation, it becomes proof of compliance, basically.
Seems like documentation, it's a recurring theme. Not just doing the right thing, but proving you did it.
Absolutely. NIS2 is all about that. Documentation, accountability. You're taking this seriously. Concrete steps, addressing those risks. Showing, not just telling.
All right, let's talk people. Human resources, specifically. Human error, that's a big factor in these incidents, right?
Huge factor. NIS2 stresses this, making sure employees, they understand their responsibility. For cybersecurity, it's not just the IT department's job.
So we're talking training, background checks, what else?
Those are key. Background checks tailored to roles, specific risks, clear procedures like disciplinary if someone violates security, processes for managing access, who sees what, and ongoing training. Can't just do it once.
It's fascinating how much of HR it's connected to cybersecurity now.
Yeah.
Really shows how interconnected it all is.
It really is. And that brings us to another element, asset management.
Okay, assets, the heart of any digital business. What's asset management? Through a cybersecurity lens.
First, a clear system. You got to classify your assets based on how sensitive they are. Could be customer data, financial records, software, even intellectual property, anything valuable.
So some assets are more sensitive than others. Obvious, but needs saying.
Exactly. Customer data, that probably needs way more protection than like a public marketing brochure. Different levels.
Right, so you've classified them. What's next?
You make policies, procedures. Handling those assets securely, storage, access, disposal when they're, no longer needed, the whole life cycle.
It's like digital security protocols, but for each type of information you handle.
Precisely. And while we're talking real world, cybersecurity isn't just online threats. Physical and environmental security matter too, often forgotten.
Right. You can't forget theft, fires, floods, power outages. Those disrupt things just as badly.
They do. NIS2 makes it clear you got to protect against those too, not just hackers.
So access controls for buildings, environmental monitoring, maybe redundancy in like critical systems, just in case.
You got it. It's an all hazards approach. That's how they phrase it.
Good reminder. Cybersecurity, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
Beyond just the digital.
Absolutely.